If you want to know the differences between commercial property and residential, stay tuned. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes, episode 1463. Myself, Michael Burgio, my colleague Josh Wapshott. This morning, we're talking about the differences between residential and commercial property. Here at Novak, we're one of really three agencies that sell residential and commercial, and really only one of two that sell any decent amount of residential commercial property, which gives us a great overview of the technical differences and a lot of the differences that buyers and questions buyers ask us, and a lot of their motivations between buying residential and commercial. But Josh, good morning. Maybe Mike. Start off with some of the key differences between a residential property and a commercial and the factors.
Yeah, sure. So I thought I'd maybe start off with tenancy-wise. So owning a commercial property as an investment, if you're looking at leasing out to tenants, there's probably two key differences, or there's quite a lot of differences, but two of the key ones are probably your terms and your prices. Commercial property, you tend to get longer terms. Businesses that go and pay money to fit out an area or premises generally want to stay and reap the rewards of that hard work. So you tend to see anywhere up to 2 all the way up to 10, 15 years and beyond with your commercial tenancies. They're generally at a higher yield than your residential market as well. So although historically we're used to 6 and 7s, quite a high yield on the market at the moment is around that circa 5% mark. You compare that to a Northern Beaches house on the market, you're looking at about 2.5%, so about double your rent, which I think means paying back the asset much faster, so towards that cash flow positive. So they're probably one of the key points on the tenancy side.
And the lease is a lot shorter on a residential, typically
correct.
6 to 12 months.
Yeah, 6 to 12 months. You maybe get a 2-year in there, but at max, that's really about it. So probably key things there, and a big point for investors.
So just to put in simple terms there, if you're buying $1 million of a commercial asset, you can expect a rental income of $70,000 per year, and the tenant could stay for 5 years. When you're buying $1 million of a residential asset, you'll be expecting about $25,000 in rental income, and you could be doing a new tenancy every sort of 6 to 12 months. When you just hear those figures, you may think to yourself, why does anyone buy residential property? But Josh, the other side of the equation when buying property, you've got your rental yield component, but then you've got your capital growth component. And that's where residential can be very strong, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. Historically, a metric we like to use in the office, doubles every 10 years, your resi market. So yeah, that's probably the other side. You're not getting as a bigger rents up front, but in the long-term gain, you're realizing those gains in equity.
And a lot of the time, you can the residential market's almost idiot-proof, foolproof. Like I've seen people buy residential land, knock the building down, and in 10 years, the land is worth more. So you've almost done the worst thing you could. You've taken the structure. But that's the power of the residential market, especially on the Northern Beaches. There's a finite amount of land and there's lots of buyer demand. Now, that's great a lot of time for your first, second, or even third purchase, where you're sort of at your highest income capacity, you're buying residential property. But when you're looking for a higher cash flow, potentially when you're retiring, that's where we see a lot of purchasers sell the residential assets to buy commercial, because they're going, well, I'm not working anymore, so I can't have my investment losing money compared to the loan, so let's get a higher yielding asset. There is some great wonders with commercial property where instead of waiting for the market to go up like residential, you could buy a shop in DY, get a great tenant and increase the value. I have a great story in Howard Avenue. There was a shop on the market vacant. asking for 700,000. The owner was about to sell it at that price, and then I found a tenant to rent it, secured the tenant on a 3-year lease, and then I sold it 2 weeks later for 910,000. So that's got 210, nearly 30% capital growth in 2 weeks, which you just really can't do in residential property. Like, you can paint, put kitchens in there, but it doesn't have the direct effect on price like commercial property does. But Josh, maybe run us through some of the loan differences buying commercial and residential.
To look at, you tend to have cheaper resi rates. I know there's more product coming up from the brokers we speak to about some commercial assets now within the 90% LVR range. So traditionally, you'd need a 30% deposit for most commercial properties, guys, especially for your smaller storage units and things like that. But like I said, there is new products coming out that are sort of closing the gap between those LVRs in the resi and commercial market. Generally, your interest rate's probably a little bit more expensive on the commercial side, being a business loan as opposed to a personal.
It's about 1%. Yeah. So if the best resi deal is 4%, your best commercial deal will be about 5%.
Yeah, so there are definitely some key differences on the loan side, and sometimes can make it difficult for people to enter, because if you're looking at buying, say, a $2 million freestanding property, well, $2 million you're looking at 600,000 cash up front, either equity or funds. So it's quite a big commitment up front, deposit wise, for commercial. It may limit people.
Yeah, if you compare the difference, like a $2 million house purchase with a 5% deposit, what's that? 100 grand, and a commercial property at 2 million, as you said, 600,000. So it's 3 times the amount of cash you need to buy a commercial property. And then the other big thing, which any friends who ever ask me, or clients, they say, I've got approval up to $1 million or 500,000 for a commercial property. I basically always advise them to spend half that, buy a majority of the commercial property with cash, and because the reason is we're used to the residential model where it's get as much loan as you can, and any property will rent quickly. Vacancy is not an issue in the scheme of things. Yes, 1 or 2 weeks empty is never great, but it's not like commercial where it can be empty for 3, 6, 12 months. Now, if you think of your residential loan, you go, well, if the tenant moves out, I can cover it for a couple of weeks. Now, imagine someone saying you've got to cover your mortgage with no rental income for a year. It can put you in a tight spot. So with commercial property, I see the difference between making money and making money on a valuation to leverage to keep buying is being able to be patient to find the right tenant. Sometimes it can take 3 months to find a tenant, and it doesn't matter if it's $100 a week office in DY or $100,000 a year restaurant on the beachfront. There's no property that always rents very quickly. Therefore, you've got to take into consideration vacancy. And what I tell people, you want to basically have your mortgage repayments on your commercial property at a level that you could pay it for 6 to 12 months. Therefore, you don't rush into any rental deal, because if you bought that property with a rental income of $50,000 per year, and you let's say it's empty and you can't afford to have it vacant for 6 months, and your first offer is $30,000 per year, let's say on a cap rate of 5%, you've devalued your asset by $400,000. So to avoid that situation, because it doesn't matter if you buy a property on a 5-year lease, 3-year lease, or vacant, the tenant could always leave, their business could always fail. So you obviously want to do your due diligence on the tenancy, but you don't know, no one could pick anything like COVID or anything that could come up to stop that income. So you want to know you can hold that property for a good amount of months, not to put you under that pressure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think...
anything else you want to add?
I think one of the, maybe people that aren't in commercial, unaware that actually with some tenancies, as opposed to residential, they'll make upgrades to your property. So you might have a blank canvas or someone moving out, new tenant coming in. Like Michael said, be very selective, make sure it's the right business, right person going into your premises. But you'll find, like with some of the deals we're talking about in Brookvale at the moment, with the tenants spending millions on site. So that's the talk. So I guess that's something quite big as opposed to your resi market where you don't quite get that. But I think that's also quite an important point for people that aren't familiar with it.
We're seeing a good, like COVID, since COVID, commercial has been struggling, but in the last sort of 6 months, we're starting to see a really big uptick. And we're just noticing in the office where traditionally property would be on the market 6 months and we're struggling to get one buyer. We're having a couple of deals where we're having 2-3 buyers competing for it at the end of it. We're leasing office space, which had almost been like the red-headed child over the last few years and just sitting vacant with nobody wanting it. So I think a big increase has been around a lot of land tax increases. So typically if your investment property was a house and your land tax bill is now 20 grand on top of council, let's say your total outgoings are now $30,000 a year. A lot of houses only get $30,000 a year, so you're not making any money. And I think that could be a bit of a push towards some of the activity we're seeing in commercial. Like you just had a sale in Carter Road, which, well, you go through it.
Like Michael said, the team effort down in Carter Road, Brookvale. Amazing result there, about 4,800 per square metre. Michael, we've been seeing over the last couple of years, Brookvale towards that $3,000 mark.
Yep, 3.5 to 4.
So a real pickup there, and a small land parcel, 468 squares, but in the heart of Brookie, people seem to love it down there. It's a beautiful spot, great place to work out of. So we're starting to see that recovery, like Michael said, storage units, rents, bigger places that we sort of didn't get too much inquiry on because businesses weren't had that confidence to make the leap into these bigger rents. But we're starting to see that change now. So you start to see it with the small guys, the rents, and then it works its way up to the owners, the bigger properties. So good outlook, good, exciting for the commercial.
I think there has been a bit of shift, as much as it was quite interesting. I was speaking to an owner the other day, and he's talking about the commercial market, and I sort of said, you speak to any business owner, things are tough with energy prices and getting staff, and he sort of goes to me, when do they say it's good? Like, when do you ever hear a business owner say it's great? And I'm like, you're right. And then I was thinking back on the Carter deal, and then we've got quite a big property on Harbord Road where, like, if you've got rentals around that 300 grand a year, that's a substantial national business typically taking it. And we've got at the moment nearly 3-4 offers and tenants on that property, which for a long time there was no interest on assets of that size. So there's a bit of shift in the movement, as much as I think even though if things are bad, if it starts to stable, then people can assess. It's like the residential market. If it's going up too quick, no one's happy. If it's going down too quick, no one's happy. It's sort of when it plateaus out, people can assess and plan ahead. So especially, you could say after the election, a couple of months, we're starting to see a bit of activity.
Yeah,
so
I think good. Yeah, I think definitely on resi side of things, we'll definitely see a busy spring. Low stock under that sort of 600 mark for the last couple of weeks now, and a lot of what you hear out there is waiting till spring. So I think it'll be a busy end of the year, and with those new rates out as well, guys. Broker Zach Shaw Financial sent in a.
Do you want to go pronouncing his last name?
No, that's why I did try. Sent some awesome info through.
Just call Zach. I'm sure there's only one.
Looks as though headline inflation's coming under target, under that band at 2.5. Suspecting another rate cut on 8th of July, and then another 2 to follow by June 2026, hopefully.
Yep.
Global inflation seems to be stable and making that stable move down easy.
World War III didn't start a couple weeks ago, so
that's
I think
probably
we're
a
good.
big bonus. But it looks like guys, we could have a really good end to the year, and commercials really start to see that recovery. So we're seeing all the signs.
Yeah.
Only time will tell.
Beautiful. I think that's enough from us.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Oh.
Are we off?